Mimahime is interrupted by Tokyo, who politely approaches to remind her that classes are about to start. She surprises him by replying that they will be tested in an exam on that day, but Tokyo doesn't believe her, as no one has mentioned anything about it. Arriving at the class, all the students are surprised when the robot teacher announces an exam and start complaining. During the evaluation, Tokyo encounters a strange question in which he is invited to visit the outside of the outside. We then get to know the outside world thanks to Maru and Karuko, who walk the streets of a completely destroyed city with post-apocalyptic vibes. Seeing a house in acceptable condition, they decide to go inside to look for something useful, so they take items like toothbrushes and toilet paper. In fact, they even find a toilet floret that Karuko uses to relieve herself. Moments later, they witness a very sad scene, the lifeless bodies of a couple who face the lack of food together until the end. Realizing that they would not find food in that house, they decided to enter a nearby house that apparently belonged to people with a lot of money. Karuko begins to prepare a dish and Maru is surprised to see this, as Karuko has used the canned food reserves. Unfortunately, the dish was accidentally contaminated with some herbs Karuko found near the house. At night, Maru sees Karuko looking at pictures of a person, so she starts to ask her some questions to get more information about this. Karuko replies that they are just friends that she wishes to meet soon. Furthermore, at that moment it is revealed that Karuko is just escorting Maru to somewhere. The next day, Karuko and Maru decide to go around the city for two reasons. Firstly, to find supplies, and secondly, to find a new shelter with a better location. While they were arguing about what happened the night before, a group of gang members appears and threatens them, as they think they are two defenseless women and want to take advantage of them. But when they see that Maru is actually a boy and Karuko has a gun, they realize that both of them have grown up in the so-called anarchic generation and can be very dangerous, so they decide to leave. But one of them notices that Karuko's gun is not real and they finally go on the attack. However, Maru beats them up and Karuko shoots her gun, proving that it is far more dangerous than a simple firearm. Afterwards, Karuko forces the gang members to show them their shelter. Upon arrival, she discovers that they have an electricity generator, so she tells them that they will leave them alone if they let her charge their batteries. She also asks them if they know a better place than that, but no one answers. Suddenly, two other gang members appear and tell her that they know a place where tomatoes are plentiful, in case they are interested. Before leaving, Karuko shows them that the batteries she was trying to charge are those of her gun. Meanwhile, at school, Miriam explains to Tokyo that she guessed about the test because she had a hunch. Then, we see that one of the kids jumps off a second floor without harming himself and runs at incredible speed, which probably means that these kids are genetically superior and have superhuman abilities. Miriam takes Tokyo to the wall surrounding the school and tells him that she is sure that behind that wall there is life, while Tokyo replies that he finds it hard to believe that outside the wall there is another world. Mimahime explains to Tokyo that he often has a dream in which every time he wants to explore the outside world, someone just like him approaches and prevents him from doing so. Thinking about this so much at night, Tokyo leaves the school and meets the principal, so he does not hesitate for a second to ask her about the outside world. The headmistress understands that these doubts could only have been sown by Mimahime and tells him that his suspicions are correct. There is indeed a world outside the wall. The next day, Karuko and Maru walk through a beautiful field in search of the place the gang member told them about, until they find a woman working in the field and pay her with money and batteries to spend the night at her house. Then, Karuko shows her the photograph she was looking at days before and asks her if she knows these people, but the woman tells her that she has never seen them. She also explains that, although she does not know the supposed paradise, everyone calls her in paradise, which Karuko and Maru later find out as they enjoy the comforts of the place. In the evening, they enjoy a delicious dinner like they haven't enjoyed for a very long time, and Karuko tells the owner of the inn that they are not a couple, and that she is only with Maru because she was paid to guard him, which saddens Maru. So at bedtime, she moves her bed away from Karuko's and falls asleep without speaking to her. However, Karuko notices that she is also very sleepy and falls asleep instantly. Meanwhile, the owner of the inn leaves a gun ready to fire. In the middle of the night, Karuko wakes up drenched in sweat and wakes Maru immediately, as she suspects a human hunter is lurking around the place. Going outside the inn, she confirms her suspicions when she sees the landlady prepared for the attack. So she decides to take matters into her own hands with Maru, despite the landlady's warnings. When they make contact with the monster, they realize that the monster is extremely dangerous due to its enormous speed and capabilities, so they must be precise in each of their attacks, even more so considering that they have just enough bullets. However, their plan is thwarted by the owner of the place, who opposes them attacking the monster, since the monster devoured her son and she believes it protects her. But when Karuko and Maru agreed, the monster killed the woman. This emotionally tore Maru and Karuko apart, so Maru used a kind of magic attack to destroy the beast's heart. The next day, they both leave the place wanting to believe that the woman did not feed her child to the inn's guests. After a long journey, Karuko and Maru finally reach the place they were looking for. Maru reveals to Karuko that his mission is to find a young man who is identical to him and inject him with a strange serum, but he does not know what will happen. She also tells Karuko that she should know, as she was the last person to see Mikura alive. Karuko has a flashback in which a woman full of bruises handed her the gun she uses and entrusted her with the mission to take Maru to paradise. A group of farmers interrupt Karuko's flashback to ask them the reason for their visit, whereupon they explain that they come all the way from Tokyo and have no bad intentions. Maru and Karuko are introduced to the village leader, who explains that they seek to restore the land, but in the meantime, they live a quiet life thanks to the fruits of the land. In the evening, while Maru and Karuko are having dinner, a surprised man appears and tells Karuko that he remembers her from his time as a race car driver, as he was her fan. Karuko denies it, but the man shows her a photograph and asks her if the rumor that she went crazy after running over her brother is true. But Maru tells him that he is wrong, despite being surprised to see that the person in the photo looks just like Karuko. Then, she sees a logo just like Karuko's gun on a box and thinks it's a sign, so she asks the stranger if he knows anything about it. He replies that the box could come from anywhere, since they export vegetables, so Karuko tells Maru that it would be best to embark on a journey with the farmers. During the trip, Maru can't wait to tell Karuko how he feels, but he gets the biggest surprise of his life. Karuko is actually a man in a woman's body. Karuko starts to tell him the story, so it goes back 5 years. Karuko, the girl the stranger had mentioned before, was competing in an important race, while Haruko, her brother, gets into trouble with some criminals who were selling fake tickets for the race. At that moment, Robin, a sort of big brother to Haruko, appears. Robin literally sweeps the floor with the gangsters, telling Haruko that he shouldn't be afraid of people like that. Later, Haruko returns to his friends and tells them what happened, showing them that Robin gave him his coat as a gift. Karuko arrives at the place of a man they call Doc, and after Haruko takes a picture of them, one of the children mentions that Doc is dangerous, so Haruko decides to keep a close eye on his sister. Days later, Robin tells Haruko that a human hunter is attacking the area, so he forbids him to meddle. But Haruko scolds him and takes a weapon he created to go out and fight. The next day, Haruko tells his friends that Robin got really mad about this, but it was worth it, since he was the one who defeated the monster. He then runs to the track to watch Karuko's race, but when he arrives, he sees an invisible human hunter and decides to jump into the track to drive it away. However, even all his efforts are not enough and the monster begins to slowly devour him. Karuko arrives at full speed and upon seeing Haruko in the jaws of the beast, he charges him head-on and is severely damaged. But half of Haruko's body had literally already been devoured. Haruko bids a tearful farewell to her sister as his life fades away. Suddenly, Haruki wakes up confused in a hospital and after prowling around the place, realizes that he is in his sister's body. As he calms down, he notices that no one knows that he is actually Haruko, and not Karuko, so he asks a nurse what happened and she explains that they both arrived in a critical situation, and that thanks to Doc's efforts, she was saved. Upon leaving, Haruko goes around the entire city looking for Robin, but everyone tells her that he has passed away while he was in a coma. Upon returning to the orphanage where she lived, she discovers that everyone is gone, so she decided to look for Doc any way she could to get all the answers. That's how she took all kinds of jobs and met Maru, who was perplexed to hear Karuko's whole story, as he is trying to assimilate that he is actually a boy. Tokyo meets Kuku, one of the girls from his school. She takes him to the edge of the forest to show him the babies. Kuku climbs smoothly up the wall thanks to his superhuman abilities, but Tokyo manages to climb up with 2 smart gadgets. Meanwhile, the school officials watch absolutely every movement of the students with cameras, noticing that some of the children are engaging in unusual behavior. But nevertheless, they don't see Kuku, and Tokyo infiltrate the wall. They infiltrate through some sort of ventilation ducts until they reach a room full of inhuman-looking babies. Although Kuku sees them as normal, Tokyo is perplexed and wants to interact with one of them. but an alarm sounds and they must run away. Seeing that Tokyo cannot run away, Cuckoo helps him, but Tokyo leaves his shoe print on one of the walls. Also, one of the little creatures learns his name. Meanwhile, Miura and Karuko say goodbye to the merchants they embarked on the trip with, but before leaving, they ask if they know a logo similar to Karuko's gun. One of them replies that it is similar to that of an old company called Mitsuba, as well as pointing the way to an abandoned facility. The young men arrive at the place, and after investigating for a while, they believe that the company is not related to them or their targets. Shiro, one of the children at the school, tells Mimahime that he feels strange and improper things with her, things he has never heard of before. When he explains them to her, Mimahime doesn't understand what he means, but Tokyo hears everything from outside and is frightened, so she runs off and goes to visit Terao, one of the local children who is sick. However, the same thing happens to Terao as Shiro, and Tokyo leaves in fright. He meets Kona and tries to explain everything that is happening, but they both blush at the mention of the subject and confess their feelings to each other. At night, Tokyo was thinking about the moment he experienced with Kona until a radio announcement interrupts him, summoning him to Terao's room. Upon arrival, the two are left alone and Terao apologizes for what he did in the afternoon. He also tells him that his health will not improve, asking him to please leave the school as it is dangerous.